Have you ever noticed how easily a single email, a traffic jam, or an unexpected comment can throw your entire day off balance? We live in a world that seems designed to provoke emotional reactions, endless notifications, social comparisons, pressures at work and home. It's no wonder so many of us feel like we're riding an emotional roller coaster with no brakes. This constant turbulence isn't just exhausting. It can cloud our judgment, strain our relationships, and keep us from living the focused, purposeful lives we want. But what if I told you there's an ancient operating system for the mind that's more relevant today than ever before? A philosophy that doesn't ask you to suppress what you feel, but instead teaches you how to understand, shape, and ultimately master your emotional world. This is Stoicism, not just a set of ideas, but a practical toolkit for emotional engineering that has stood the test of centuries. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius, who ruled during some of history's most challenging times, captured the essence of this approach perfectly when he wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this and you will find strength. Think about that for a moment. It's not what happens to us that determines our emotional experience, but how we interpret and respond to those events. This simple yet profound shift in perspective is at the heart of Stoic practice. It's about moving from being passive victims of circumstance to active architects of our inner world. What if you could approach your emotional responses with the precision of a scientist, observing, analyzing, and refining them until they serve you rather than control you? That's exactly what Stoicism offers, a time-tested framework for building resilience, cultivating presence, and developing what the ancients called apatheia, not apathy, but a state of clear-minded calm where you're no longer jerked around by every passing impulse or external disturbance. Throughout this video, we'll explore the key principles that make this transformation possible. We'll dive into cognitive reframing, the art of changing how you see events to change how you feel about them. We'll look at emotional detachment not as coldness, but as the ability to create space between stimulus and response. We'll examine how Stoics build resilience through mental rehearsals and voluntary discomfort, and how presence, being fully engaged with the here and now, becomes a superpower in a distracted world. This isn't about becoming unfeeling or robotic. It's about becoming free from the tyranny of unchecked emotions, free to choose your responses wisely, and free to live with a deep sense of inner stability, no matter what chaos swirls around you. If you've ever wished for more control over your emotional life, you're in the right place. Let's begin this journey into the timeless science of emotional engineering. Stoics believed we don't react to events, we react to our interpretations. It's a deceptively simple idea, but it completely reframes how we understand our emotional life. Think about it this way: an event happens, it's neutral, it just is, but then our mind immediately slaps a label on it. We judge it as good or bad, threatening or desirable, and that judgment is what sparks the emotion. The event itself is just the trigger. The gun is loaded by our beliefs, our expectations, and the stories we tell ourselves. This is the core of the Stoic blueprint for emotional mastery. It hands you the keys to your own mind by showing you that while you can't always control what happens, you have ultimate authority over how you process what happens. This is where the famous Stoic dichotomy of control comes into play. The philosopher Epictetus, who began his life as a slave, put it with stunning clarity: some things are within our power while others are not. Within our power are opinion, motivation, desire, aversion, and, in a word, whatever is of our own doing. Not within our power are our body, our property, our reputation, our office, and in a word, whatever is not of our own doing. His point is that our internal world, our judgments, our values, our reactions, is our domain. The external world, it operates by its own rules. The traffic jam is not within your power. The rude comment from a coworker is not within your power, but your opinion of that traffic jam, your decision to internalize that comment, that is 100% yours to command. Let's take that traffic jam example. You're sitting in your car, stopped dead, and you watch your estimated arrival time tick later and later. The initial event is neutral, cars are not moving. But then the judgments start flooding in. This is terrible, this always happens to me, now my whole morning is ruined, that meeting is so important, they're going to think I'm irresponsible. Each of these judgments pours fuel on the fire of frustration and anxiety. Your heart rate climbs, you grip the wheel tighter, you might even honk your horn in a futile expression of anger. Now imagine a different set of judgments. The event is the same, cars are not moving, but this time you think, this is unfortunate, but it is outside my control. Getting upset won't make the cars move. I can use this time. I can listen to that audiobook I've been meaning to start, or I can simply enjoy a few quiet minutes to myself. The external event is identical, but the internal experience, the emotional reality you are living in, is completely different. One is a nightmare of stress, the other is a moment of resigned peace. The event didn't change, your interpretation of it did. This is the foundational work of emotional engineering. It's not about pretending things aren't frustrating. It's about refusing to add layers of unnecessary suffering on top of the initial inconvenience. It's the difference between the first arrow and the second arrow. The Stoics might say the event is the first arrow, a fact of life that might cause some pain. But our catastrophic judgments, our rage, our sense of victimhood, these are the second arrows we shoot into ourselves, and that second arrow is always optional. So I want you to take a moment and think about your own life. Can you recall a recent situation where your interpretation of an event amplified your emotional reaction? Maybe it was a text message that wasn't answered right away, and your mind immediately jumped to, they're ignoring me, they're angry. Maybe it was a minor criticism that you inflated into a major personal failing. That gap between the event and your reaction, that's where your power lies. That's the space where the Stoic engineer goes to work. How often do you respond impulsively, only to regret it later? That moment of immediate reaction, sending the angry email, snapping at a loved one, making a hasty decision, is where so much of our emotional turmoil begins. It feels automatic, as if the emotion just takes over and we're merely along for the ride. But what if you could insert a pause button between that initial impulse and your final action? This is precisely what the Stoics trained themselves to do through a practice we might call cognitive distancing, the art of creating mental space to gain clarity and avoid being hijacked by raw emotion. The Roman philosopher Seneca, who served as an advisor to the Emperor Nero, wrote extensively about the dangers of unchecked anger. He offered a powerful piece of advice: the greatest remedy for anger is delay. He wasn't suggesting we simply suppress our feelings, but rather that we give ourselves time to let the initial heat of emotion cool down so that reason can step back in. Think of it like this: an emotional impulse is a wave. It rises, it peaks, and if you can just wait a moment, it will naturally begin to subside. The Stoic practice is to ride that wave without being pulled under by it. By deliberately delaying our response, even for just a few breaths, we create that crucial psychological distance. We stop being the emotion itself and instead become the observer of the emotion, which completely changes our relationship to it. One of the most powerful tools they used for this was called the view from above. This is a mental exercise where you consciously pull your perspective back from the immediate, heated situation. You imagine yourself rising above the room, above the city, even above the earth, and look down on the scene as if from a great height. From that vantage point, how significant does that argument, that criticism, that minor frustration truly seem? Our daily troubles have a way of filling our entire field of vision, but this practice shrinks them back down to their actual size, surrounded by the vast context of the world and the universe. It's an instant dose of perspective that drains the drama and urgency out of a situation, allowing you to respond from a place of calm rather than react from a place of panic. Consider a common workplace scenario. Your manager criticizes a project you've spent weeks on in front of your entire team. The immediate, visceral impulse might be one of humiliation and defensiveness. Your face flushes, your heart pounds, and the first words that come to mind are sharp and protective. Without cognitive distancing, you might lash out with a retort, make an excuse, or shut down completely. All responses you're likely to replay in your mind later with regret. Now imagine applying the Stoic pause. You feel the surge of anger, but you consciously take a breath. You create that mental space. In that space, you might realize your manager's feedback, however poorly delivered, contains a valid point that could improve the project. You might see that their tone has more to do with their own stress than with your worth. From this calmer, more distant perspective, you can choose a response that is professional and constructive, perhaps saying, "Thank you for the feedback. I'd appreciate the chance to discuss your points further one-on-one so I can understand how to implement them." The outcome is radically different because you were not a passenger to your impulse, you were the pilot. This ability to create space isn't just about avoiding big blow-ups, it's a daily tool for better living. It's the moment you feel the urge to buy something impulsively online and you wait 24 hours, often finding the desire has passed. It's the moment you feel a wave of anxiety about a future event and you consciously bring your focus back to what you can control right now. Every time we insert that pause, we strengthen our ability to choose our behavior rather than having it chosen for us by our temporary emotional state. It's the difference between being a puppet whose strings are jerked by every external event and being the puppeteer who holds the strings yourself. I want you to take a moment and identify one area of your life where creating more of this mental space could make a significant difference. Is it during difficult conversations, when you first check your phone in the morning, when you're making financial decisions? Just naming that area is the first step. The next time you find yourself in that situation, see if you can remember Seneca's remedy. Don't try to stop the emotion, that's often impossible. Just delay the action. Give yourself the gift of a few seconds of space. In that quiet gap between impulse and action, you'll find something profound, your freedom to choose. Think of your mind as a gatekeeper standing at the entrance to your inner world. Every single moment, countless impressions are knocking at the door, thoughts, sensations, images, judgments. The untrained mind opens the door for every single one without question, letting them all rush in, trample through, and rearrange the furniture. The Stoics proposed a radical alternative. What if your gatekeeper was highly trained? What if it learned to stop each impression at the door, examine it carefully, and only grant entry to those that are truthful and useful? This is the profound practice known as the discipline of Assent, and it's arguably the most powerful tool in the entire Stoic toolkit for emotional engineering. Marcus Aurelius, in his private writings, constantly reminded himself of this duty. He wrote, "Everything is what your opinion makes it, and that opinion is in your power." So when you're ready, wipe out your opinion. He's not suggesting we become empty or numb. He's giving us the ultimate user manual for our own perception. An impression arrives. Let's say you see someone who gets a promotion you wanted. The initial automatic impression might be, "That's unfair, they're less deserving than I am. I've been wronged." This impression comes bundled with a whole set of emotions: envy, resentment, self-pity. The undisciplined mind accepts this entire package as absolute truth. It internalizes the story of injustice, and the emotional turmoil that follows feels completely justified. But the Stoic practitioner, the emotional engineer, intercepts that impression at the gate. They hold it up to the light of reason before letting it in. They ask critical questions. Is it truly a fact that this is unfair? Do I have all the information? Is this person truly undeserving, or is that just my ego talking? Even if it feels unfair, is this judgment serving me? Is it helpful? This process of examination strips the impression of its emotional charge and its false certainty. You might realize that you have no idea what that person's contributions truly are. You might acknowledge that while you're disappointed, labeling it as a cosmic injustice only causes you more pain. The refined impression that you then allow entry might be a simple, neutral fact. They received a promotion and I did not. From that clean, unadorned starting point, you can then choose a useful response, perhaps congratulating them, or asking for feedback on your own performance, or deciding to develop new skills rather than being consumed by a story of victimhood that you yourself authored. There is no better modern example of this than the constant stream of impressions we get from social media. You scroll through your feed and see a picture of a friend on a lavish vacation. The initial, unchallenged impression is immediate. Their life is so perfect. Look at what they have that I don't. My life is boring by comparison. This impression, if granted immediate assent, triggers a cascade of envy and dissatisfaction. But what if you applied the discipline of assent? You would pause and deconstruct the impression. You'd recognize that you're seeing a single, curated, two-dimensional image, a highlight reel deliberately edited to project a specific image. It is not the full, messy, complex reality of that person's life. The impression their life is perfect is not a fact. It's a story you're telling yourself based on incredibly flimsy evidence. By refusing to assent to that initial judgment, you disarm it. You can look at the same picture and think, "That's a nice photo. I hope they're having a good time," without letting it dictate your own emotional state. You become immune to the comparative suffering that social media so expertly manufactures. This practice transforms you from a passive recipient of your thoughts into an active critic and curator. It's the difference between living in a house where the windows are always open, letting in every gust of wind, every bit of dust and noise from the street, and living in a house where you have well-fitted windows and screens you can still see outside. You can still let in the fresh air, but you get to choose what comes inside. The weather outside is unpredictable, but your inner environment remains clean, calm, and under your control. The goal is not to stop having impressions. That's impossible. The goal is to break the automatic link between receiving an impression and being compelled to believe it and act on it. So I want you to take a moment and turn this lens on your own mind. How often do you accept your initial negative impressions without any scrutiny? How often does a fleeting thought like, "I'm not good enough," or "this is going to be a disaster," walk right through the front door and make itself at home, dictating your mood and your actions for hours or even days? The next time you feel a sudden shift in your emotions, a pang of anxiety, a spike of irritation, a wave of insecurity, see if you can trace it back to the initial impression that triggered it. Then, before you let that story define your reality, ask the Stoic gatekeeper's question. Is this actually true, and is this belief useful for me to hold? That simple act of interrogation is where your true freedom begins. What if you could not just accept, but genuinely love whatever life throws at you? This isn't about naive positivity or simply gritting your teeth through hardship. It's about a radical, transformative shift in perspective the Stoics called Amor Fati, a Latin phrase that translates to a love of one's fate. This is the next level of emotional engineering, moving beyond managing your reactions to actively embracing every single event, especially the difficult and unexpected ones, as not just acceptable but as essential and even welcome. It's the difference between seeing yourself as a leaf blown by the wind and seeing yourself as the wind itself, powerful, directional, and in harmony with the forces of nature. The German philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche later famously captured this spirit when he wrote, "My formula for greatness in a human being is Amor Fati, that one wants nothing to be different, not forward, not backward, not in all eternity. Not merely bear what is necessary, still less conceal it but love it." But this idea didn't start with him. Its roots are deeply Stoic. Centuries earlier, Epictetus, a man born into slavery, taught that we should seek to welcome events, not just endure them. He said, "Do not seek for things to happen the way you want them to. Rather, wish that what happens happen the way it happens, then you will be happy." This is the core of the practice. It's about aligning your desires with reality itself, so that your will and the world's unfolding become one and the same. When you achieve this, there is no more internal conflict, there is only flow. This is where people often misunderstand Stoicism. They mistake this embrace for passivity, a sort of resigned shrug in the face of difficulty. But Amor Fati is the exact opposite of passive. It is profoundly active. It's not about lying down and letting life run you over. It's about getting up and asking, how can I use this? What is this trying to teach me? Where is the opportunity hidden inside this obstacle? It's the mentality of a sculptor who looks at a block of marble not as a plain, hard rock, but as a masterpiece waiting to be revealed. The chisel strikes aren't attacks to be feared. They are the necessary process to create something beautiful. Your challenges are the chisel. Your character is the masterpiece. History is filled with towering figures who embodied this principle, often turning their greatest setbacks into their most defining strengths. Take Thomas Edison. When his laboratory, which contained years of work and prototypes, burned to the ground in a devastating fire, he didn't collapse in despair. He famously said, "There is great value in disaster. All our mistakes are burned up. Thank God we can start anew." The very next day, he was already rebuilding, energized by the clean slate the fire had unintentionally given him. He loved that fate. He didn't just accept it. He found the hidden gift within it and ran with it. Modern entrepreneurs live by this same code. Every failure is reframed not as a stop sign, but as a data point, a necessary, invaluable lesson that gets them one step closer to a solution. A rejected pitch, a failed product launch, a critical article, each is greeted not with despair but with a kind of grateful curiosity. Good, they might say. Now I know what doesn't work. Now I can build something better. So let's bring this home to your life. Think about a recent setback you've experienced. It could be something significant, like a job you didn't get or a project that fell apart. Or it could be something smaller but still irritating, like a planned outing ruined by rain or a minor disagreement with a friend. Now, instead of focusing on the frustration or disappointment, try on the lens of Amor Fati. Ask yourself, what if this exact thing, in all its inconvenient glory, was meant to happen? Not in a mystical, preordained sense, but in a practical one. How can this event serve me? What door might it be closing so that a better one can open? What weakness is it revealing that I now have the chance to strengthen? What patience is it asking me to cultivate? When you start to interrogate your misfortune with love rather than resistance, you fundamentally change your relationship with reality. You stop fighting the current and start learning how to swim with it, discovering a new kind of power and serenity that comes from knowing that nothing can truly happen to you, it can only happen for you. Stoics didn't wait for disaster to strike, they prepared for it in advance. This proactive approach to managing fear and anxiety is called premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. At first glance, it might sound pessimistic or even morbid to regularly contemplate everything that could possibly go wrong. But this was never about expecting the worst to happen. It was about immunizing yourself against the shock and disruption of misfortune by making familiarity your ally. The Stoics understood a fundamental truth about the human mind. We fear the unknown. The sudden, unexpected blow is the one that staggers us. But when we have already walked through a difficulty in our imagination, when we have sat with it and examined it from all angles, it loses its power to surprise and destabilize us. This mental rehearsal doesn't attract disaster. It builds an emotional firebreak containing the potential damage so a single spark doesn't become a wildfire of panic. Seneca, one of the wealthiest men in Rome, actively practiced this to ensure his peace of mind was not dependent on his fortune. He wrote, "He who has been expecting a thing to happen is less aggrieved when it does happen." He would deliberately set aside time to mentally rehearse poverty, exile, illness, and even death. He didn't do this to make himself miserable, but to achieve a profound sense of liberation. By visualizing the loss of his wealth, he realized that his core self, his character, his virtues, his ability to reason would remain intact. He would still be Seneca. This practice made him fearless, not because bad things couldn't happen, but because he had already proven to himself that he could withstand them. The sting of potential loss was removed because he had already experienced it in the safe laboratory of his own mind. The goal was to reach a point where you could say, "I have lived through this already, I know the path, I will be okay." Let's make this practical with a scenario almost everyone can relate to, preparing for a crucial job interview. The days or weeks leading up to it are often filled with low-grade anxiety. Your mind might spin through a catalogue of horrors. What if I blank on a question? What if they think I'm underqualified? What if I spill coffee on myself? What if I don't get the offer? The standard approach is to try to suppress these thoughts, to distract yourself or repeat positive affirmations. But premeditatio malorum takes the opposite tack. It says, "Okay, let's go there, let's play it out." You would sit down and deliberately visualize the worst-case scenario in vivid detail. You imagine walking into the room, your mind going completely blank on the first question. You feel the heat of embarrassment. You see the awkward glances from the interviewers. Then you mentally navigate it. What do? You might take a breath, smile, and say, "I'm so excited about this opportunity that my mind just went blank for a second." Could you please repeat the question? You realize that this isn't a catastrophe, it's a recoverable human moment. You imagine not getting the job. You feel the initial disappointment. And then you see yourself the next day, updating your resume, sending out new applications, and understanding that this one rejection is not a verdict on your worth but a redirection. By mentally enduring this failure, you rob it of its terrifying power. When you walk into the actual interview, you do so with a newfound confidence because you are no longer afraid of the outcome. You've already survived the worst in your mind, so you are free to perform at your best. This practice is a form of emotional vaccination. A vaccine introduces a weakened version of a virus to train your immune system to fight off the real thing. Premeditatio malorum introduces a weakened version of adversity to train your psychological immune system. The anxiety you feel beforehand is almost always worse than the reality of the event itself. By consciously and courageously facing that anxiety head-on through visualization, you effectively inoculate yourself against it. You move from a state of fearful avoidance to one of calm preparedness. The Stoic isn't someone who hopes for the best. They are someone who is prepared for the worst and is therefore genuinely free to hope for and work toward the best, unencumbered by fear. I want you to try this. Think of one upcoming challenge that's causing you some anxiety. It could be a difficult conversation, a financial decision, a presentation, or a medical appointment. Instead of trying to push the nervous thoughts away, dedicate 10 minutes to sitting with them. Close your eyes and walk yourself through the worst plausible outcome. Don't just skim over it, dwell in it. How would you handle it? What would you do next? Who would you talk to? You will almost certainly find that the reality of even the worst case is something you are capable of managing. This isn't about summoning doom, it's about discovering your own resilience. When you consciously confront what you fear, you often find that the fear itself was the only true obstacle. Imagine looking down at your life from space for a moment. See that tiny blue and green marble floating in the immense blackness. On that speck, there's a continent, and on that continent, a city, and in that city, a street, and in a building on that street, there's a room where you are right now, worrying about that awkward comment you made in a meeting or the fact that your package is delayed. From this cosmic vantage point, how significant do those concerns truly feel? This shift in perspective isn't about dismissing your problems, it's about contextualizing them. The Stoics called this practice the view from above, and it is one of the most powerful and immediate tools for dissolving anxiety and reclaiming a sense of calm. It's a form of mental time travel and space travel that shrinks our troubles down to their actual size, reminding us that we are part of a vast, unfolding universe, not the center of it. Marcus Aurelius, who spent his life ruling an empire, constantly returned to this practice in his private writings to ground himself. He would remind himself, "You can rid yourself of many useless things among those that disturb you, for they lie entirely in your imagination, and you will then gain for yourself ample space by comprehending the whole universe in your mind, and by contemplating the eternity of time, and observing the rapid change of every part of everything. How short is the time from birth to dissolution? The limitless time before birth as well as the equally boundless time after dissolution." He's not trying to make his life seem meaningless. He's doing the opposite. He's finding a deeper meaning by connecting his fleeting existence to the grand, awe-inspiring scale of cosmic reality. By contemplating the sheer vastness of time and space, the trillions of stars, the billions of years, and the endless cycles of birth and decay, the sting of a personal insult or the frustration of a traffic jam simply loses its potency. It gets absorbed into the immense, beautiful, and indifferent machinery of the universe. Let's bring this down from the cosmos to the everyday. You're stuck in traffic, late for an appointment, and your frustration is building. Now apply the view from above. Mentally pull your camera back. See your car, one of thousands in a river of metal on a concrete road. Pull back further. See the city with millions of people living out their own complex dramas, joys, heartbreaks, anxieties, and triumphs. Your traffic jam is one tiny thread in this immense tapestry. Pull back further, see the continent, the planet spinning through space. That meeting you're late for, while important to you, is a microscopic event on a global scale. This isn't meant to make you feel insignificant. It's meant to free you. It liberates you from the tunnel vision that makes a minor inconvenience feel like a catastrophe. It's the emotional equivalent of taking a deep breath of fresh air after being in a stuffy room. Now, contrast this with how we usually operate. We live our lives with the camera zoomed all the way in, ultra close on every tiny detail. A critical email fills our entire field of vision. A negative comment on social media feels like a global referendum on our worth. We lose all sense of proportion. The view from above is the act of zooming the camera out to its widest possible angle. When you do that, you realize that the project you're stressed about will be forgotten in a year. The argument you had with your partner is a single sentence in a lifelong story. The financial worry, while real, is a challenge that fits within the broader arc of your entire life. This practice doesn't solve your problems, but it solves your anxiety about your problems. It gives you the mental clarity and emotional stability to then address them effectively, from a place of calm strength rather than panicked reaction. So I want you to try this right now. Bring to mind one current worry that's been occupying your thoughts. It could be a work deadline, a personal conflict, a health concern. Now close your eyes for just a few seconds if you can, and begin to pull the camera back. See yourself in the room. See your house or building on your street. See your town or city nestled in its region. See your country on the globe. See the earth itself, a beautiful, fragile ball hanging in the void. From this expansive vantage point, look back at that initial worry. How does its emotional weight feel now? Has its intensity diminished, even just a little? The goal of this practice isn't to avoid your life, but to live it with more wisdom and less self-inflicted suffering. It's a reminder that while your problems are real to you, their power over your peace of mind is optional. You hold the camera. You can choose to zoom in and engage, or you can zoom out and find peace. The universe is vast, and you are a part of it, not a victim of it. Your mind can be a sanctuary, untouched by outer turmoil. This is the heart of the Stoic concept of the inner citadel, a mental fortress you build within yourself, a place of absolute peace and clarity that remains standing no matter what storms rage outside. It's not about withdrawing from the world or building walls to hide behind. It's about cultivating an inner strength so resilient, so rooted in your core principles, that external events simply cannot shake your fundamental equanimity. You are not trying to control the chaos of the world. You are mastering the one thing you have absolute sovereignty over, your own inner world. Epictetus, who knew a thing or two about facing external hardship, put it with stunning power: no person is free who is not master of themselves. He went on to describe the invincibility of a well-trained mind, stating that we can be put in chains, imprisoned, or even killed, but our judgment, our character, our inner citadel can remain unconquered if we choose to fortify it. This is the ultimate goal of Stoic emotional engineering: to reach a point where your sense of self-worth, your peace, and your stability are no longer tethered to the shifting sands of external validation, possessions, or circumstances. Your happiness becomes an inside job, generated from within, and therefore utterly immune to theft or loss. To understand what this looks like in practice, we need only look to history's most profound examples of resilience. Consider the prisoners of war who endured years of solitary confinement and brutal interrogation, yet emerged with their spirits unbroken. They had lost every single external freedom, movement, communication, comfort, but they fiercely protected the one freedom their captors could never reach: the freedom to choose their attitude, to assign meaning to their suffering, to retreat into the rich landscape of their own thoughts and memories. Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor, embodied this Stoic principle perfectly in the concentration camps. He observed that while the Nazis could control every aspect of his physical existence, they could not force him to surrender his inner freedom to choose his response. He wrote, "Everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way." This is the inner citadel in its most extreme and heroic form. It is the unassailable realization that your identity is not what happens to you, but how you respond to what happens to you. We can find this same principle operating in less extreme but equally powerful ways in everyday life. Think about the last time you received some harsh, unfair criticism. Perhaps it was from a boss, a family member, or an anonymous comment online. The initial sting is natural. But what happens next? Does that criticism move in and take up residence in your mind, dictating your mood for the rest of the day, eroding your confidence? Or do you have a fortified inner space, a citadel where you can take that criticism, examine it with calm reason, discard what is untrue or unhelpful, and learn from the rest without letting it define you? The difference between these two responses is the difference between having a mind that is a public thoroughfare, open to every passing opinion, and a mind that is a sovereign fortress, granting entry only to what you consciously decide is worthy. So what does it take to build and maintain this citadel? The building materials are your daily practices, the cognitive distancing, the discipline of assent, the premeditation of troubles we've already discussed. Every time you pause before reacting, you are adding a stone to the wall. Every time you question a negative impression, you are reinforcing the gate. Every time you voluntarily embrace a small discomfort, you are testing your defenses and making them stronger. But citadels can also be weakened. They are undermined by the constant seeking of external validation, by outsourcing your happiness to things outside your control, by indulging in complaints and gossip, by allowing every minor irritation full access to your attention. I want you to take an honest look at your own mental fortress. What are the daily habits that actively strengthen your inner citadel? Is it moments of quiet reflection, your journaling practice, consciously limiting your consumption of negative news? And just as importantly, what are the sieges you willingly allow against your own walls? Is it endless scrolling on social media that invites comparison and envy? Is it surrounding yourself with people who thrive on drama and complaint? Is it the unconscious habit of catastrophizing minor setbacks? Your peace of mind is your most valuable possession. Protecting it isn't selfish. It's the foundation from which you can then go out and engage with the world effectively, generously, and courageously, because you know you always have a sanctuary to return to. Stoics valued character over comfort, integrity over income. This might sound like a noble but impractical ideal, but it's actually one of the most liberating ideas in their entire philosophy. It all hinges on their unique definition of indifference, a term that is often completely misunderstood. When a Stoic says they are indifferent to wealth, health, or reputation, they do not mean they are apathetic or don't care. They mean these things do not determine their moral worth or their capacity for happiness. They are indifferent to them in the same way a master chef is indifferent to whether he's using a copper pot or a stainless steel one. The quality of the cook isn't in the pot, it's in the skill of the chef. The pot is just a tool. It can be preferred or dispreferred, but it is never the source of the chef's excellence. This is the crucial Stoic distinction between preferred indifference and dispreferred indifference. A preferred indifferent is something that, all else being equal, it is perfectly rational and natural to choose. Good health is preferred over sickness. Having enough money to be secure and generous is preferred over poverty. A good reputation among reasonable people is preferred over being slandered. These things have value in the course of a well-lived life, but, and this is the critical point, they are not good in the Stoic sense. the only true good is virtue, wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. Conversely, the only true evil is vice, folly, cowardice, injustice, and excess. Everything else, every single external condition, possession, or event resides in the vast category of indifference. They are not the source of a good life, they are the raw material that a virtuous person uses to live well. A dispreferred indifferent, like illness or poverty, is simply a more challenging piece of material to work with, but it does not prevent the virtuous person from exercising their character. In fact, it often provides the greatest opportunity to do so. Seneca, a man who experienced immense wealth and power, was perhaps the most eloquent critic of the empty pursuit of externals. In his letters, he constantly warned that mistaking these indifferents for true goods is the root of most human misery. He observed that we spend our lives exhausting ourselves to acquire wealth and status, believing they will finally make us happy, only to find that the happiness they offer is as fleeting as a shadow. He wrote, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor." This craving, this belief that we need something external to be complete, is what creates a state of perpetual anxiety and dissatisfaction. We become prisoners to the very things we thought would set us free, constantly worrying about gaining what we don't have or losing what we do. Let's make this concrete with a modern example. Think about the last time you made a significant purchase, a new phone, a car, a piece of clothing you'd been wanting. Remember the initial thrill of unboxing it, the surge of pleasure and excitement. How long did that feeling last? A day, a week, sooner or later, the new object simply blends into the background of your life. It becomes normal. The joy it provided was real, but it was temporary and conditional, dependent on you possessing that specific thing. Now contrast that with the feeling you get from acting with virtue. Recall a time you told a difficult truth when a lie would have been easier, or you stood up for someone who was being treated unfairly, or you persevered through a challenge with courage and grace. That feeling of self-respect, of integrity, of knowing you acted rightly doesn't fade. It isn't contingent on you keeping a possession. It's a deep, lasting satisfaction that comes from within. No one can take it from you, and it isn't subject to market crashes, theft, or obsolescence. The Stoic goal is to shift your pursuit from the first type of joy, which is fleeting and fragile, to the second, which is durable and entirely under your control. This is an invitation to conduct a fearless audit of your own life. Take a mental inventory of all the things you currently believe are necessary for your happiness. Your list might include a certain income level, a particular relationship status, a specific body image, the approval of certain people, or the possession of certain gadgets or experiences. Now for each item, ask yourself the Stoic question: is this truly good, or is it an indifferent? If I lost this, would I lose my ability to be a good person? Would it prevent me from acting with courage, justice, or wisdom? You might find that many of the things you've been chasing are merely preferred indifferents, nice to have, but not essential to your core worth and well-being. Recognizing this doesn't mean you have to give them up. It means you can enjoy them without being enslaved by them. You can use wealth without worshipping it, appreciate comfort without demanding it, and accept praise without depending on it. This is the ultimate freedom, to engage with the world fully and passionately, but to anchor your happiness in the one thing that can never be taken from you, the quality of your own character. For Stoics, good feelings weren't the goal, right action was. This might sound counterintuitive at first. In a world obsessed with the pursuit of happiness, the Stoics proposed a radically different metric for a life well lived, not how you feel but how you act. They observed that when we make our primary aim the cultivation of virtue, wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance, a profound emotional stability naturally follows. It's not that positive emotions are banned, it's that they are understood as a welcome byproduct of living correctly, not the target we should be straining to hit. When your actions are consistently aligned with your deepest principles, you eliminate the source of most emotional turmoil, internal conflict. The anxiety, guilt, and regret that so often plague us are frequently the result of knowing, on some level, that we have acted out of cowardice, foolishness, or injustice. A virtuous life, therefore, is the most direct path to a peaceful mind. Marcus Aurelius constantly returned to this connection in his private meditations. He wrote, "The tranquility that comes when you stop caring what they say or think or do, only what you do, is this fair, is this the right thing to do?" To be satisfied with even the smallest progress, that is wealth. His insight is that the calm we seek doesn't come from controlling others or our external circumstances, but from the unwavering knowledge that we ourselves are acting with justice and integrity in each moment. This inner alignment creates a kind of emotional bedrock. The storms of life, criticism, failure, rejection, can rage around you, but they cannot easily penetrate the core of someone who knows they have done the right thing. Their self-worth is not up for debate because it is generated internally through action, not externally through approval or outcomes. Consider a practical, everyday example that almost everyone faces: the difficult conversation. Imagine you need to give constructive feedback to a colleague who has become a friend. You know the feedback is necessary for the project's success, but you also fear their reaction. You're anxious you might hurt their feelings or damage the relationship. This anxiety is a form of internal conflict. Now you have a choice. One path is to avoid the conversation. This might bring temporary relief from the immediate anxiety, but it introduces a deeper, more lingering unease, the quiet guilt of having failed in your duty, the knowledge that you chose comfort over courage. The other path is to have the conversation with honesty and kindness. You prepare, you speak truthfully but compassionately, and you do it because it is the just and courageous thing to do. The immediate moment might be uncomfortable, but once it's over, a deep sense of peace settles in. Regardless of the other person's reaction, you know you acted with integrity. You upheld your duty and respected your friend enough to be honest with them. The external chaos of their potential disappointment is there, but it doesn't create internal chaos because you are not at war with yourself. This is the Stoic secret to emotional engineering. It's about rerouting your focus from managing the symptom, the turbulent emotion, to addressing the cause, the misalignment between your actions and your values. Virtue isn't an abstract philosophical concept. It's an operational system for decision-making. The virtue of wisdom helps you discern the right course of action. Courage gives you the strength to execute it, even when it's frightening. Justice ensures your actions consider the welfare of others, and temperance moderates your impulses, preventing you from acting out of raw emotion. When this system is running smoothly, your emotional life stabilizes because you are no longer betraying yourself. There is a profound confidence that comes from knowing that no matter what happens, you can trust yourself to act rightly. I want you to take a moment and reflect on your own experience. Can you recall a time when you did the right thing, the difficult thing, even though it was hard? Maybe you returned the lost wallet, you apologized sincerely for a mistake, you stood up for someone who couldn't stand up for themselves, or you simply told the truth when a lie would have been easier. In the aftermath of that action, even if the external outcome wasn't perfect, do you remember the quality of the peace you felt? That feeling wasn't an accident. It was the direct result of your actions being in harmony with virtue. It was your psyche's way of thanking you for living with integrity. That feeling, the Stoics would argue, is a more reliable and lasting source of well-being than any fleeting pleasure or external achievement. It is the tranquility that comes from knowing your inner citadel is strong and your character is intact. Long before mindfulness apps and guided meditation podcasts, Stoics had already mastered the art of being fully present. But their approach to living in the moment carried a crucial distinction that often gets lost in modern interpretations. For the Stoic, presence wasn't about escaping reality to find a quiet corner of the mind. It was about engaging with reality more completely, especially with your duties and responsibilities right here, right now. It was an active, ethical form of attention, a profound commitment to the task and the people immediately in front of you. While modern mindfulness often focuses on stress reduction through techniques like mindful breathing, Stoic presence asks a more demanding question, not just, am I calm? But, am I doing what I ought to be doing with my full focus and capacity? Epictetus cut straight to the heart of this practice with characteristically blunt advice. Focus not on what is happening to you, but on how you are responding to what is happening. Not on what you must do in the future, but on what you are doing right now. This is the operational manual for Stoic mindfulness. It's a directive to anchor your awareness not in the breath, but in your volition, your power to choose your action in the immediate present. Your mind isn't drifting to a past argument, rehearsing a future meeting, or numbly scrolling through a feed. It is fully invested in the quality of the work you are doing, the sincerity of the conversation you are having, or the simple act of walking from one room to another with clear intention. This quality of attention transforms mundane activities into profound exercises in virtue. Consider the difference in application. Modern mindfulness might advise you to focus on your breath to detach from work stress. This is a valuable tool for emotional regulation. The Stoic approach would complement this, but then take it a step further. After that calming breath, you would then pour 100% of your reclaimed focus back into the work itself, not to get it over with, but to do it excellently, justly, and without internal complaint. The stress relief comes not from detachment from the task, but from full, virtuous immersion in it. Another example, you're washing dishes. A common mindfulness technique is to notice the sensation of the warm water, the smell of the soap, the sound of the clinking plates. The Stoic would do all of that, but also connect it to the virtue of the action, taking care of your home, contributing to your family's well-being, and performing a simple duty with gratitude and lack of resentment. The present moment becomes a gym for your character. This practice is incredibly difficult because our modern world is engineered for distraction. We are encouraged to multitask, to optimize every second for maximum output, to always be planning the next thing while half doing the current thing. This fractures our attention and, from a Stoic perspective, represents a constant flight from our present duty. It's a form of self-betrayal where we sacrifice the only moment we truly have control over, this one for an imagined future or a regretted past. The Stoic goal is to reclaim that sovereignty over your attention, to direct it like a laser beam onto what is within your sphere of action right now. I want to challenge you to a simple but potent experiment. Sometime in the next 24 hours, choose a single, ordinary 1-hour block of time. It could be an hour of work on a specific project, an hour of reading, an hour of playing with your children, or even an hour of household chores. For that entire hour, make a conscious pact with yourself to be fully, stoically present. That means no phone within reach, no background television, no mental list making for later. When your mind inevitably wanders to a worry or a plan, gently but firmly guide it back to the texture, the duty, and the virtue of the activity at hand. Notice the impulse to check for notifications not as a command to be obeyed, but as an impression to be examined and dismissed. You will likely find this hour simultaneously more challenging and more deeply satisfying than any other part of your day. It is in these uninterrupted stretches of focused engagement that we not only produce our best work but also build an unshakable peace, one fully lived moment at a time. We've all felt anger flare up, that sudden, hot surge that makes your heart pound and your vision narrow. It's one of the most primal and overwhelming emotions we experience, feeling like a force of nature that simply takes over. But what if you could approach that surge not as a helpless victim, but as a calm scientist? What if you could dissect your own anger, understand its components, and disarm it through sheer rational analysis? This is precisely the method the Stoics developed, turning rage from a master into a subject for cool, clinical study. They recognized that anger is never an inevitable response. It is always the product of a specific, and often flawed, judgment we've made about a situation. By learning to identify and interrogate that judgment, we can break the chain reaction before it ever reaches the explosion point. The Roman philosopher Seneca, in his brilliant essay on anger, provides the most detailed Stoic manual for this process. He didn't just tell people to calm down, he gave them a forensic toolkit for dismantling their own rage. He described anger as a form of temporary madness, a brief insanity that is both destructive and entirely optional. His solution was to insert a pause, a moment of deliberate delay between the initial spark of provocation and our full-blown reaction. In that crucial space, he instructed us to become detectives of our own minds, asking a series of revealing questions. What specific belief was just triggered? What story am I telling myself about this person's intentions? Is that story actually true? Is my reaction proportionate to the facts or to my inflated interpretation of them? This isn't about suppressing the feeling. It's about understanding its source so thoroughly that the feeling itself loses its power. Let's apply this to a classic modern scenario: road rage. Someone cuts you off in traffic. The immediate, visceral reaction is a jolt of adrenaline and a wave of fury. The untrained mind immediately weaves a story. That jerk did that on purpose. They have no respect for anyone. They could have caused an accident. They deserve to be punished. This narrative, fueled by the belief in a malicious and deliberate insult, is the gasoline on the fire. Now apply the Stoic autopsy. In that pause, you interrogate the story. Can I be 100% certain that person did that on purpose? Is it not far more likely they are simply distracted, late, or a bad driver? A fact of life, not a personal attack. Did their action actually cause an accident, or did I manage to avoid one? Is my screaming and gesturing actually making the situation safer or more just? Or is it only raising my own blood pressure and risking further conflict? By challenging the initial heat of the moment judgment, you expose its irrationality. The event shifts from a personal affront to a simple traffic incident. The anger, with its foundation knocked out from under it, begins to dissipate on its own. This same rational dissection works perfectly in the more emotionally charged arena of family arguments. Imagine a relative makes a critical comment about your parenting at a family dinner. The flash of anger is instant. The story: they always undermine me. They have no right to judge. They're trying to make me look bad in front of everyone. Now pick up Seneca's toolkit. Pause, breathe, dissect. Is it true they always do this, or is this one comment feeling amplified because it touches a nerve? Could their intention be misguided care rather than malice? Even if the comment is unhelpful, does my angry retort improve the situation for my child or only create a scene? What is my ultimate goal here: to win the argument or to maintain a peaceful family environment? This process doesn't mean you become a doormat. It means you choose your response based on wisdom rather than reflex. You might decide that a calm, boundary-setting conversation later is more effective than a fiery counterattack in the moment. You respond from a place of strength, not reactivity. The next time you feel that familiar heat of anger beginning to rise, I want you to try this experiment. Instead of venting or suppressing it, see if you can reach for a notepad or your phone. Pause for just 60 seconds and write down the answer to this one question. What is the specific belief I am holding right now that is causing this anger? Get it out of your head and onto the page. You might write, I believe my coworker is deliberately trying to make me look incompetent, or I believe my partner completely disregarded my feelings. Seeing the belief written down in plain language has a remarkable effect. It suddenly looks smaller, more fragile, and far more debatable. You can then bring your rational mind to bear on it. Is this belief absolutely true? What other interpretations are possible? Is holding this belief serving me? This act of written analysis is how you train yourself to become the scientist of your own soul, transforming anger from a raging fire into a curious specimen under the microscope. Stoics sought out discomfort to make comfort unnecessary. This idea might sound bizarre, even counterproductive, in a culture that relentlessly pursues ease, convenience, and the path of least resistance. Why would anyone willingly choose to be cold, hungry, or tired? The answer lies in a profound understanding of human psychology and the nature of fear. This practice, known as voluntary discomfort, is not about masochism or self-punishment. It is a form of proactive training, a vaccine for the soul that builds immunity to life's inevitable hardships before they are forced upon you. By periodically stepping into minor, self-imposed challenges, you systematically weaken the power that discomfort and the fear of loss have over you. You prove to yourself through direct experience that you can handle far more than you think, and in doing so, you build a bedrock of confidence that no external circumstance can easily shake. The Stoic teachers were very direct about this. Musonius Rufus, a revered teacher of Epictetus, argued that practicing hardship was essential for a virtuous life. He said, how can a person become tough if they pursue a life of luxury? How can they learn to overcome challenges if they never face any? His point was that comfort, when it becomes the constant default, makes us soft and vulnerable. It creates a fragile bubble that we then spend all our energy trying to protect, living in a low-grade state of anxiety about its inevitable popping. Epictetus, his student, drove the point home with his typical practicality. He advised his students to periodically go without their warm cloak, to drink only water instead of wine, and to sleep on a hard bed. He wasn't recommending a life of perpetual poverty. He was prescribing a series of drills. Just as a soldier trains in peacetime for the chaos of war, these exercises were meant to fortify the mind against future misfortune. The goal is to reach a state where you can genuinely say, if I lose my wealth, I will be fine. If I face cold or hunger, I can endure it. My peace does not depend on these externals. The beautiful thing about this practice is how easily it translates into our modern world. We may not need to worry about finding a warm cloak, but we face a different set of comforts that can equally enslave us if we are not careful. A powerful modern equivalent is the digital detox. We live in a world of constant, addictive stimulation, endless scrolling, notifications, and on-demand entertainment. Voluntarily putting your phone away for an evening, or even for a full day, is a potent Stoic exercise. The initial itch of boredom, the slight anxiety of feeling disconnected, the urge to reach for that easy dopamine hit, these are the modern discomforts we must learn to sit with. By willingly enduring this minor deprivation, you strengthen your mental muscles against the far more serious fear of being out of the loop or missing out. You rediscover the quiet capacity to be with your own thoughts, a skill that comfort and convenience had slowly eroded. Another powerful example is the cold shower. It's a small, daily act of courage. Standing under that stream of cold water is a direct confrontation with your desire for immediate comfort. Everything in your body screams to turn it to warm. But when you choose to stay, to breathe through the initial shock, you are not just building resilience to cold, you are building resilience to the unpleasant sensations of life itself. You are teaching your nervous system that discomfort is not an emergency. It is a temporary state that you have the power to navigate with calm awareness. Similarly, intermittent fasting for a short period isn't just about physical health. It's a masterclass in distinguishing between actual hunger and mere craving. It teaches you that the pang of an empty stomach is not a command you must instantly obey, but merely a sensation to be observed. You prove to yourself that you are not a slave to your appetites. This is the ultimate freedom that voluntary discomfort offers. It breaks the chain of automatic reaction. It creates a tiny gap between a desire and its fulfillment, and in that gap you find your autonomy. You move from being a passenger who is jerked around by every craving and aversion to being the pilot who can choose your course regardless of the weather. The practice shrinks life's genuine hardships down to size because you have already willingly faced smaller versions of them and emerged unscathed. The potential loss of a job becomes less terrifying when you know you can live on less. Social rejection stings less when you are comfortable spending time alone. The goal is not to live an ascetic life, but to live a life where comfort is a choice you can enjoy, not a necessity you desperately need. So the invitation this week is a simple but profound one. I want you to choose one small, voluntary discomfort to practice. It doesn't have to be dramatic. It could be as simple as taking the stairs instead of the elevator, leaving your phone in another room for 2 hours after work, drinking water with your meal instead of a sugary drink, or going for a walk without a podcast or music. The key is to do it consciously, with intention. As you feel the minor urge to quit or to seek the easier path, notice that feeling, observe it without judgment. And then gently reaffirm your choice. You are not depriving yourself, you are investing in your own resilience. You are building an inner fortitude that will stand by you when life, as it inevitably will, brings a challenge you did not choose. Marcus Aurelius didn't write his meditations for publication. He wrote them to himself, those profound, personal reflections that have guided millions for 2,000 years were never intended to be read by another soul. They were his private therapy sessions, his daily workout for the mind, his method for untangling the knots of the day and preparing for the challenges of the next. This is the true spirit of Stoic journaling. It's not about crafting beautiful prose for an audience. It's about conducting an honest, structured dialogue with yourself to reinforce your philosophical principles and engineer a calmer, more resilient emotional state. It transforms abstract philosophy from something you read into something you do, a daily practice that etches Stoic wisdom into the very fabric of your thinking. The Stoics didn't leave us without a guide for this. They provided a powerful framework, a series of prompts designed to structure this inner conversation. One of the most potent is the evening review. As Seneca advised in his letters, we should end each day by asking ourselves a series of probing questions. What bad habit have I cured today? What fault have I resisted? In what respect am I better? This isn't about self-flagellation or compiling a list of failures. It's a calm, forensic audit of your actions. Did you lose your temper in traffic? Did you avoid a difficult conversation out of fear? Did you waste an hour scrolling mindlessly? Acknowledge it without drama, not to punish yourself, but to understand the trigger and plan a better response for next time. Crucially, you must also ask, what did I do well? Did you pause before sending that angry email? Did you offer kindness to a stranger? Did you complete a difficult task with focus? Celebrating these small victories reinforces the neural pathways of virtuous behavior, teaching your brain what to repeat. The counterpart to the evening review is the morning intention. Before the chaos of the day descends, you take a few quiet moments to set your mental compass. This is where you proactively apply the premeditation of evils. What challenges might today present? A stressful meeting, a tedious chore, a potential conflict. You visualize these events not to dread them, but to prepare for them. You mentally rehearse responding with patience, with courage, with wisdom. You remind yourself of the dichotomy of control. What is within your power today is your effort, your attitude, your integrity, not the final outcomes or the opinions of others. By setting this intention at the day's start, you are programming your mind to default to Stoic principles when the pressure is on, turning reactive impulses into chosen responses. A third powerful method is quote reflection. The Stoic texts are filled with dense, powerful passages that can serve as daily anchors. Choose a single quote from Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, or Seneca, just one line. Write it at the top of your journal page. Then, don't just copy it, unpack it. What does it truly mean in the context of your life today? How can you apply this specific piece of wisdom to a current challenge? This practice breathes life into ancient words, forging a direct link between the philosopher's insight and your own lived experience, making their wisdom your own. To see how this works in practice, imagine you've had a truly rotten day. A project at work fell apart, you had a heated argument with a partner, and you feel defeated and irritable. Sitting down with your journal that evening, you wouldn't just vent. You'd apply the Stoic lens. You might write, "Today, the project failed due to factors outside my complete control, but I am judging it as a catastrophe. My frustration is coming from my expectation that everything should go smoothly. In my argument, I reacted with defensiveness instead of listening. Tomorrow, I can focus only on the next actionable step on the project, and I will apologize for my tone in the argument, focusing on understanding rather than being right." This process transmutes the raw, chaotic energy of a bad day into constructive insight. Conversely, on the eve of a daunting event, like a major presentation, your morning journaling might look like this. Today, I may face tough questions. Some things are within my control, my preparation, my clarity, my professionalism. What is not within my control is their reaction. If I am criticized, I will receive it not as a personal attack but as data to improve. I intend to act with courage and wisdom regardless of the outcome. The power of this practice lies in its consistency. It's the daily repetition, the gentle, relentless steering of your thoughts back to what matters, that forges true emotional resilience. It builds that inner citadel one brick at a time. So the invitation tonight is simple. Before you go to sleep, take just 5 minutes. Find a notebook or even a blank document on your phone. Ask yourself 2 questions and answer them with gentle honesty. What is one thing I did well today that aligned with my character? And what is one thing I could learn from and improve upon tomorrow? This small act is how you begin the most important conversation you'll ever have, the one that shapes who you are becoming. What do you truly desire and why? It's a question that cuts straight to the core of our daily anxieties and ambitions. We spend so much of our lives in pursuit of things we believe will finally make us happy. A better job, a bigger house, more recognition, more likes. But the Stoics turned this entire pursuit on its head with a radical proposition. Freedom and happiness are not achieved by satisfying our desires, but by understanding and mastering them. They recognize that an unchecked desire is like a leak in a boat. No matter how much you bail, you'll never be safe until you patch the hole. The goal isn't to get everything you want. It's to want only what you need and to find profound satisfaction within that space. Epictetus, who began his life in chains, understood this better than anyone. He saw that our inner state is dictated not by our circumstances, but by our cravings. He offered a simple but life-altering formula. Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. This isn't a call for poverty, it's a call for clarity. It's the realization that the person who is content with a simple meal is richer than the wealthy person who is perpetually hungry for a more extravagant one. The Stoics made a crucial distinction between natural desires and vain ones. Natural desires are rooted in our basic needs for survival and well-being, nourishing food, shelter, security, meaningful connection, and the pursuit of virtue. These have a natural limit. You can only eat so much. You only need one roof over your head. Vain desires, on the other hand, are artificial and limitless. They are manufactured by society and fueled by comparison. The craving for luxury brands, for endless wealth far beyond need, for fame, for the approval of strangers, for the perfect curated life. These desires have no end point. They are a bottomless pit, and pouring your energy into them ensures you will always feel a sense of lack. There is no better modern example of this than our relationship with social media. The platform is essentially a vast engine for generating and inflaming vain desires. You scroll and see someone's vacation photos, their new car, their professional achievement, their seemingly perfect relationship. The algorithm is designed to trigger a comparative impulse. I want that. Why don't I have that? This desire for validation, for likes, for followers, for external signals of worth is a classic vain desire. It places your happiness in the hands of others, making it fleeting and entirely outside your control. You post a picture and feel a temporary high from the engagement, but it quickly fades, requiring another post, another hit of validation to feel okay again. It's a cycle of addiction, not fulfillment. Contrast this with the desire for self-improvement, a natural desire rooted in the Stoic virtue of wisdom. Wanting to learn a new skill, to become more patient, to understand the world more deeply, to strengthen your body, this desire is internally focused. The satisfaction comes from the process itself, from the gradual mastery and the growth of your own character. It doesn't require an audience or a like button. The reward is the quiet confidence that comes from knowing you are better today than you were yesterday. This Stoic analysis of desire is ultimately about reclaiming your sovereignty. Every time you chase a vain desire, you hand over the reins of your happiness to something external. You are effectively saying, I cannot be happy until I get that promotion, that car, that person's approval. You make yourself a hostage to fortune, but when you consciously limit your desires to what is natural and within your control, you declare independence. Your happiness becomes a default state, accessible at any moment, because it is built on the bedrock of your own character and your appreciation for what you already have. The freedom that comes from wanting less is the freedom to truly enjoy your life as it is, without the constant background noise of lack and longing. It is the freedom to engage with the world from a place of abundance, not neediness. I want you to try a quick but powerful exercise. Grab a piece of paper or open a note on your phone. Write down the top 3 things you are actively desiring right now. Be brutally honest. It might be a tangible object, a career milestone, a relationship goal, or a certain number on a scale. Now for each one, play the Stoic gatekeeper and ask 2 questions. First, is this desire natural or vain? Is it rooted in a real need for my well-being and virtue, or is it fueled by comparison, ego, and the pursuit of external validation? And second, perhaps more importantly, if I never achieve or acquire this thing, would I still be able to live a good, meaningful, and happy life? Your honest answers to these questions will tell you everything you need to know about who is truly in charge of your emotional world, you or your desires. Stoics believed we are all branches of the same tree. This beautiful metaphor captures the essence of their concept of sympatheia, a profound sense of interconnectedness that binds all human beings together into a single, living organism. It's the understanding that your well-being is inextricably linked to the well-being of others, that an injury to one branch is an injury to the whole tree, and that our individual flourishing is ultimately dependent on the health of the entire human community. This perspective is a powerful antidote to the isolation and hyper-individualism that characterizes so much of modern life, offering a radical shift from a mindset of separation and competition to one of unity and shared destiny. Marcus Aurelius, despite being the most powerful man in the known world, constantly reminded himself of this fundamental truth. He wrote, "What brings no benefit to the hive brings none to the bee." And we are made for cooperation, like feet, like hands, like eyelids, like the rows of the upper and lower teeth. To act against one another then is contrary to nature. His meditations are filled with exhortations to love even those who wrong us, not because they deserve it, but because they are fellow participants in the same universal reason. He challenges himself to see past the irritating behavior of another person to their shared humanity, writing, "When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. They are like this because they cannot tell good from evil, but I have seen the beauty of good and the ugliness of evil, and have recognized that the wrongdoer has a nature related to my own. And so none of them can hurt me, no one can implicate me in ugliness, nor can I feel angry at my relative or hate him. We were born to work together like feet, hands, and eyes, like the two rows of teeth, upper and lower. To obstruct each other is unnatural. To feel anger at someone, to turn your back on him, these are obstructions. This isn't a naive call for passivity. It's a strategic and philosophical recognition that conflict and resentment are like attacking your own body. They harm the whole system, which includes you. We can see the practical power of this principle in something as everyday as team dynamics at work. Imagine a project is falling behind schedule. The default, ego-driven response is often to look for someone to blame. You might think it's the marketing department's fault for changing the requirements, or the developers aren't pulling their weight. This mindset of us versus them creates silos, defensiveness, and ultimately makes the problem worse as energy is diverted into protecting reputations rather than solving the issue. Now apply the lens of sympatheia. You see the team not as a collection of competing individuals and departments, but as a single organism. The problem isn't their problem, it's our problem. A delay in one area is a delay for the entire body. This shift in perspective transforms your response. Instead of assigning blame, you're motivated to ask, how can I help? What resources does another part of the team need from me to get back on track? What communication broke down that we can fix together? You move from a posture of judgment to one of compassionate assistance, because you understand that the success of the whole is your success, and its failure is your failure. This Stoic view also provides a crucial lens for processing overwhelming global issues. It's easy to feel disconnected from tragedies happening on the other side of the world, or to see people with different beliefs or backgrounds as a foreign, other. The interconnected view dismantles that distance. It asks you to see a refugee not as a statistic from a conflict in a distant land, but as a branch of your own tree that has been violently broken. It asks you to see a political opponent not as an enemy to be defeated, but as a fellow human being who shares the same fundamental desire for safety and flourishing, even if their methods for achieving it are deeply flawed. This doesn't mean you have to agree with them or that you shouldn't stand up for what's right. It means you engage from a place of shared humanity rather than dehumanizing contempt. Your goal shifts from obliterating the other to healing the whole tree, which requires understanding the roots of the conflict and seeking solutions that benefit the entire system, not just your branch. The next time you find yourself preparing for an interaction, whether it's a casual conversation with a neighbor, a negotiation with a colleague, or even just reading the comments on a news article, pause for just a moment and try on this Stoic lens. See the person in front of you not as a separate entity, but as a literal part of the same human community that you belong to. How might this change your approach? Would you be more inclined to listen first, to assume good faith, to seek common ground? When you genuinely view another person as part of yourself, criticism can become constructive feedback, disagreement can become dialogue, and conflict can become an opportunity for the entire organism to grow stronger and more resilient. This is the ultimate engineering of emotion, replacing the narrow anxiety of the ego with the expansive compassion of a shared existence. Contemplating death isn't morbid, it's a Stoic tool for vibrant living. This practice, known by its Latin name Memento Mori, remember you must die, might seem like a dark fixation at first glance, but the Stoics understood it as the ultimate clarifier, a mental exercise that cuts through the noise of daily life to reveal what is truly essential. It's not about cultivating a fear of the end, but about harnessing the powerful awareness of life's finitude to live with more intention, gratitude, and courage right now. By regularly bringing the reality of our own mortality into focus, we are not depressed, we are awakened from the slumber of taking our days for granted. This awareness acts like a filter, instantly separating the trivial from the meaningful and granting us the clarity to stop postponing our lives. Seneca, in his letters to his friend Lucilius, returns to this theme again and again, arguing that it is the certainty of death that gives life its shape and its urgency. He writes, "Let us prepare our minds as if we'd come to the very end of life. Let us postpone nothing. Let us balance life's books each day. The one who puts the finishing touches on their life each day is never short of time." His point is profound. The person who lives each day with the conscious understanding that it could be their last is not rushed or panicked. They are uniquely focused and efficient. They waste little time on petty grievances, fruitless arguments, or the endless pursuit of vanity, because the hourglass is visibly draining in their mind's eye. This practice doesn't tell us to cease all long-term planning, but to infuse our present actions with the purpose and presence we would naturally adopt if we knew our time was short. It's the difference between saving your best china for a special occasion that may never come, and using it today to celebrate the ordinary miracle of a shared meal. We see this principle manifest in the most powerful way in the stories of people who have faced their own mortality directly and survived. Individuals who have had near-death experiences, received a terminal diagnosis, or lived through a catastrophic event often report a radical and instantaneous shift in their priorities. The things that once caused them immense anxiety, social status, professional rivalries, minor imperfections suddenly evaporate as concerns. What rushes in to take their place is a ferocious appreciation for the simple, beautiful facts of existence, the warmth of the sun, the sound of a loved one's laughter, the taste of a fresh meal. They are granted through trauma, the perspective that Memento Mori seeks to cultivate through disciplined practice. They stop waiting to live and start living immediately, mending broken relationships, pursuing forgotten passions, and expressing love more openly because the illusion of infinite time has been shattered. The Stoic practice is a way to achieve this profound clarity without the trauma, to voluntarily adopt the wisdom that crisis forces upon others. So let's bring this from the philosophical to the practical. The true power of this meditation isn't in thinking about death in the abstract. It's in letting that thought guide your choices in the here and now. I want you to try a writing exercise that can make this tangible. Take a piece of paper and write at the top, "If I knew I had 1 year left to live." Now complete that sentence. What would you immediately stop doing? What would you start doing? Who would you reach out to? What unfinished business, whether it's a creative project or an overdue apology, would you finally complete? This isn't a morbid fantasy. It's a values extraction tool. The items that fill that list are not items for a bucket list to be completed in some distant future. They are a mirror showing you the life you are not currently living but deeply wish to be. Your answer likely has very little to do with acquiring new things and everything to do with deepening connections, expressing yourself authentically, and savoring experiences. Memento Mori is the daily nudge to start acting on that list now, to stop placing conditions on your happiness and to treat today as the non-renewable, incredibly precious resource that it truly is. Stoics ask not what's in it for me, but what does humanity require? This subtle shift in questioning is the very essence of the Stoic discipline of action, a profound understanding that our every deed should be measured not by personal gain, but by its contribution to the common good. It's the recognition that we are not isolated individuals navigating a hostile world, but fundamentally social beings, interconnected threads in the vast tapestry of human society. Our nature, as the Stoics saw it, is not to compete and hoard, but to cooperate and contribute. To act otherwise is to live against our own nature, creating an internal friction that is the source of much of our unhappiness and sense of emptiness. This principle transforms morality from a set of external rules to a personal, daily practice of aligning your actions with the welfare of the whole. Marcus Aurelius, despite the immense power he wielded as emperor, constantly drilled this idea into his own mind. He wrote, "That which isn't good for the hive isn't good for the bee." And in another passage, "What brings no benefit to the hive brings none to the bee." His meditations are filled with reminders to act for the common benefit, to see his role not as a master to be served, but as a servant to the commonwealth. He emphasized doing the right thing for its own sake, writing, "You can commit a just act without praise and become a good man without anyone knowing." This is the Stoic ideal in its purest form, action divorced from the need for external reward, recognition, or validation. The satisfaction comes not from a trophy or a compliment, but from the deep, internal knowledge that you have played your part well in the human community, that you have strengthened the hive rather than weakening it. This philosophy finds incredibly practical expression in our modern world, often in the smallest of choices. It's the decision to volunteer your Saturday morning at a local food bank, not to build your resume, but because your community has a need you are capable of filling. It's the conscious choice to become an ethical consumer, researching companies and spending your money on products that are sustainably sourced and ethically produced, even if they cost a few dollars more. You are casting a vote with your wallet for the kind of world you want to live in, considering the welfare of the workers and the environment alongside your own desire for a bargain. It's the simple, daily act of kindness, holding a door open for someone with their hands full, offering a genuine compliment to a stranger who looks like they're having a hard day, or patiently listening to a friend without immediately turning the conversation back to yourself. These are not grand, heroic gestures, but they are the very fabric of a society built on mutual aid and respect. Each one is a tiny brick in the construction of a better world, and a direct application of the Stoic discipline of action. This practice also reframes how we approach our professional lives. You can go to your job every day with the primary question being, how much can I get paid for the least amount of effort? This is a recipe for resentment and boredom, or you can adopt the Stoic question, how can my work today serve others? How does this task, however small, contribute to my team, my company's customers, or the broader society? A software developer might see their code not just as a series of commands, but as a tool that helps nurses track patient care more efficiently. A teacher grades papers not as a tedious chore, but as an act of investment in the potential of each student. A custodian cleans a building not merely to earn a wage, but to create a healthy, pleasant environment for everyone who uses it. When you infuse your work with this sense of purpose, it transforms it from a job into a vocation, a calling to serve the common good through your unique skills. The action remains the same, but the meaning behind it shifts entirely, bringing a sense of dignity and fulfillment that a self-centered perspective can never provide. So the challenge today is to make this abstract principle tangible. I want you to consciously choose one action to perform purely for the benefit of others, with no expectation of thanks or reward. It doesn't have to be a monumental act. It could be as simple as writing a thoughtful thank you note to a coworker who never gets recognition, anonymously paying for the coffee of the person behind you in line, or spending 30 minutes picking up litter in your local park. As you perform this action, hold the Stoic intention clearly in your mind. You are not doing this for praise. You are doing it because it is just, because it strengthens your connection to your community, and because it is what your nature as a social being requires. Notice the quiet, internal satisfaction that arises from this selfless act, a feeling that is far more durable and profound than the fleeting pleasure of personal gain. This is the reward that the Stoics promised, the unshakable knowledge that you are living in accordance with your highest self, and in doing so, are playing your part in the beautiful, ongoing project of humanity. Anxiety often stems from worrying about things we can't change, creating a storm of mental noise that leaves us feeling paralyzed and exhausted. We lie awake at night replaying conversations that already happened, or we spiral into panic about future events that may never come to pass. This mental churn is like trying to steer a car by gripping the windshield wipers instead of the wheel. It's exhausting effort applied to the wrong things, generating immense friction but producing no forward motion. The Stoic response to this universal human experience is not to try and stop the storm, but to learn how to redirect your energy toward the single, solid piece of ground you can always stand on, the things that are genuinely within your power to influence. This brings us back to the foundational Stoic tool, the dichotomy of control, but now we're applying it as a precise surgical instrument for anxiety reduction. Epictetus opens his handbook, the Enchiridion, by drawing the line in the sand that changes everything. Some things are up to us and some are not up to us. Our opinions are up to us, our impulses are up to us, our desires, our aversions, in short, whatever is our own doing. Our bodies are not up to us, our property is not up to us, our reputations are not up to us, in short, whatever is not our own doing. This isn't a philosophical suggestion, it's an operating manual for a tranquil mind. Anxiety flourishes in the blurry space where we confuse these two categories, pouring our precious mental energy into trying to control the uncontrollable. The remedy is to bring ruthless clarity to that blurry space, to sort our worries into two distinct piles, and then consciously choose where to place our attention. Let's take one of the most common modern anxieties, job security. You might lie in bed worried about a potential round of layoffs. Your heart races as you imagine your name on the list, the financial pressure, the blow to your identity. This is a classic anxiety spiral. Now apply the Stoic filter. What in this scenario is truly within your control? You cannot control the company's financial performance, the decisions of senior leadership, the state of the economy, or whether your specific role is deemed redundant. These are the uncontrollables. Trying to mentally manipulate these factors is like trying to change the weather by worrying about it. It's a futile expenditure of energy that only leaves you drained. Now, what is controllable? Your performance is within your control. You can choose to show up today and be diligent, focused, and helpful. Your preparation is within your control. You can update your resume, expand your professional network, and develop new skills. Your attitude is within your control. You can choose to meet the uncertainty with courage and pragmatism rather than fear and panic. Your financial preparedness is within your control. You can review your savings and create a contingency budget. The moment you make this list, your anxiety transforms. It doesn't vanish, but it is channeled. The vague, terrifying monster of layoffs is broken down into a set of actionable items you can actually work on. The energy that was fueling the panic is now fuel for productive action. This method works for any flavor of anxiety. Worried about a first date, you cannot control whether the other person likes you, finds you attractive, or has a good time. These are uncontrollables. You can control your hygiene, your punctuality, your intention to be a good listener, and your choice to be authentically yourself. Anxious about your health, you cannot control your genetic predispositions or whether you get a specific illness. You can control your diet, your exercise routine, your sleep habits, and your commitment to attending regular checkups. The pattern is always the same. Anxiety is the pain of feeling out of control. The cure is to rediscover your agency by focusing with laser precision on the specific, tangible things you actually can control. This isn't about positive thinking, it's about precise thinking. It's the difference between staring up at a mountain you think you have to climb all at once and realizing you only ever need to focus on the very next step in front of you. So I want you to try this right now. Bring to mind one specific area that has been causing you anxiety. It could be a relationship, a financial issue, a work project, or a personal goal. Now take out a piece of paper or open a note on your phone. Draw a line down the center. On the left side, label it Uncontrollables. List every aspect of the situation that is ultimately not up to you, other people's feelings, final outcomes, past events, market forces, sheer luck. Acknowledge them and then consciously release your grip on them. They are not your department. On the right side, label it Controllables. List every single action, attitude, or preparation step that is within your power. Your effort, your honesty, your willingness to learn, your next small step. This list is your mission. This simple act of writing it down physically moves the anxiety from your swirling thoughts onto the page, where you can see it clearly for what it is, a mix of things to let go of and things to do. Your job is to focus exclusively on the second column, trusting that by taking care of what is yours to do, you are building the most resilient and peaceful life possible, no matter what the uncontrollable world brings your way. In a world of constant noise, Stoics sought silence to hear themselves think. We live in an age of unprecedented auditory and informational bombardment. Notifications ping, screens glow with endless content, and the social world demands our perpetual engagement. This relentless external stimulus creates a kind of mental static, a fog that makes it difficult to discern our own thoughts from the chatter we absorb. The Stoics recognized that this noise wasn't just an annoyance, it was a fundamental obstacle to wisdom and self-possession. They understood that to know yourself, to audit your judgments and align your actions with virtue, you first need to create a quiet space where your own inner voice can finally be heard above the din. Seneca, in his letters, offers some of the most compelling praise for this practice of deliberate solitude. He writes, "Be careful, however, lest this reading of many authors and books of every sort may tend to make you discursive and unsteady. You must linger among a limited number of master thinkers and digest their works if you would derive ideas which shall win firm hold in your mind. He who is everywhere is nowhere." His insight is that without periods of quiet digestion, even valuable information becomes mere clutter. But he goes even further, describing solitude not as loneliness, but as the necessary condition for a profound conversation with the most important person you will ever meet, yourself. He continues, "Nothing is more profitable than to be alone with yourself, to converse with yourself, to ask yourself questions and answer them. This is the heart of Stoic solitude." It is not an escape from the world, but a deeper engagement with the one thing you have the power to change: your own mind. It is in this quietude that you can finally hold your impressions up to the light, question your automatic reactions, and strengthen your inner citadel without distraction. Consider the stark contrast between two common modern behaviors. The first, you wake up and immediately reach for your phone, plunging into a river of news headlines, social media updates, and work emails. Your mind is immediately colonized by the agendas, opinions, and demands of others. Your first thoughts of the day are reactive anxiety about a global event, envy at a friend's vacation photos, stress about an upcoming deadline. The day begins with you already playing defense, your emotional state dictated by external events before you've even had a chance to center yourself. Now imagine the alternative. You wake up and instead of reaching for the device, you simply sit for a few minutes in silence, or you go for a walk, leaving your headphones at home. At first, it might feel strange, even uncomfortable. Your mind might race with the same anxieties and to-do lists, but if you persist, a shift occurs. The mental static begins to settle. Without new inputs to process, your mind turns inward. You might start to mentally rehearse your day with intention, considering how you will handle challenges with courage and wisdom. You might reflect on a Stoic quote, not just reading it but truly wrestling with its meaning for your life. You become the author of your day's first thoughts, rather than the editor of everyone else's. This practice of scheduled silence is where the theoretical principles of Stoicism are pressure-tested and internalized. Cognitive distancing isn't just a concept, it becomes a lived experience in the space between your breaths. The discipline of assent is practiced as you observe a worry arise and, in the quiet, have the clarity to question it before accepting it as truth. This isn't about achieving a blank mind or a state of blissful relaxation, though that may be a side effect. It is about creating the optimal conditions for rigorous self-examination and intentional living. It is the daily calibration of your moral and emotional compass, ensuring it points true north before the storms of the day try to spin it in every direction. I want to extend a simple but potent challenge to you. Sometime before this day is over, I want you to intentionally schedule just 15 minutes of uninterrupted silence. It doesn't have to be a formal meditation. It could be sitting in a chair with a cup of tea and simply staring out the window. It could be a walk around the block without any podcasts or music. The only rule is no inputs, no phone, no book, no conversation. Your only task is to be present with your own thoughts. You will likely be surprised by what arises. Boredom, restlessness, a sudden urge to check your phone. Observe these impulses as the Stoic would, as impressions to be examined rather than commands to be obeyed. And then see if you can gently guide your mind toward a constructive inner dialogue. Ask yourself Seneca's questions. What challenge of today have I not met with courage? What desire have I not mastered? What fault have I resisted? This small investment of 15 minutes is not a break from your life. It is the essential maintenance required for the engine of your character to run smoothly and powerfully through everything else you do. When was the last time you truly paused to appreciate the ordinary? Not just the big milestones or the windfalls, but the simple, quiet facts of your existence that form the unremarkable yet essential background of your life. The ability to take a deep breath, the comfort of a safe place to sleep, the reliable beating of your own heart. This is where Stoic gratitude begins, not as a fleeting feeling of thankfulness, but as a profound and disciplined recognition of the inherent value in what you already possess. It is a radical act of seeing the world as it is, stripped of the stories of lack and comparison we so often tell ourselves, and acknowledging the sheer enoughness of the present moment. This practice is fundamentally different from the modern concept of positive thinking or the popular advice to just be grateful. Those approaches often feel like putting a positive veneer over a negative reality, a forced attempt to feel better. Stoic gratitude is not about glossing over difficulties or pretending everything is perfect. It is a clear-eyed, philosophical assessment of your current condition. It's the understanding that while you may desire more, you already have everything you fundamentally need to practice virtue and live a good life at this very moment. It is the deliberate act of shifting your attention from what is absent to what is abundantly present, thereby dismantling the engine of perpetual wanting that fuels so much of our anxiety and dissatisfaction. We know that Marcus Aurelius, the emperor of the known world, began his days with this specific ritual. In the quiet hours of the morning, before the immense burdens of state descended upon him, he would sit and write reminders to himself. He didn't list grand achievements or future desires. He grounded himself in the basic, beautiful facts of his existence. In his meditations, he writes, "When you arise in the morning, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love." He would reflect on the people he could learn from, the character of those around him, and the opportunity the new day presented to act with justice. This wasn't a feel-good exercise. It was the daily calibration of his perspective, a way to anchor his mind in reality and fortify himself against the temptations of complaint, entitlement, and despair that power so easily brings. The objects of this deep gratitude are often the things we overlook because they are always there. Consider your health. You likely don't spend much time feeling grateful for your functioning liver or your clear vision until perhaps they are threatened. The Stoic practice is to feel that gratitude now, not later. It's to recognize that the simple ability to walk to the kitchen without pain is a marvel of biological engineering that you get to experience in this moment. Or think about the capacity to learn. The fact that you can watch this video, understand these concepts, and apply them to your life is a testament to a mind that can reason, absorb, and grow, a faculty that is not a given, but a gift to be used well. Even more counterintuitively, Stoic gratitude extends to challenges and obstacles. This is where it becomes a true superpower. Can you feel gratitude for a difficult person in your life? Not because you enjoy their company, but because they provide you with the unique and necessary gymnasium in which to train your patience, your empathy, and your courage. Can you be grateful for a financial setback because it forces you to distinguish between wants and needs, thereby strengthening your resilience and temperance? This reframing doesn't make the problem disappear, but it transforms it from a curse into a curriculum, and for that you can be genuinely thankful. So, I want to make this practice immediate and personal for you. Pause the video for a moment if you need to. I want you to bring to mind 3 things in your life that you almost certainly take for granted, but that you are, at your core, truly and deeply grateful for. Don't reach for the obvious. Dig deeper than your job or your family, as wonderful as they are. Think of the fundamentals, the electricity that powers your home and the device you're watching this on. The clean water that flows from your tap, the fact that you woke up this morning with a mind capable of understanding these words. Write them down, say them out loud, or just hold them in your thoughts. Feel the weight of their reality. These are not small things. They are the foundation upon which your entire life is built. By consciously acknowledging them, you are not ignoring your problems. You are simply putting them in their proper context, surrounded by a world of abundance that was there all along, waiting for you to notice. Words have power. Stoics chose theirs carefully to build understanding, not ego. In a world where conversation is often treated as a competitive sport, where we speak to win arguments, to impress, or to fill uncomfortable silences, the Stoics proposed a radically different purpose for dialogue: the pursuit of truth and the cultivation of mutual respect. They saw every conversation as a practical exercise in virtue, a chance to practice wisdom in discerning what is true, courage in saying what is necessary, justice in considering the other person's perspective, and temperance in restraining the impulse to dominate or deflect. This approach transforms communication from a potential battlefield into a collaborative workshop, where the goal isn't victory but clarity and connection. Epictetus, with his characteristic focus on what is within our control, provided the foundational rule for this practice. He instructed, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak." But he went even further, advising to only open your mouth when your words are likely to be an improvement upon the silence. He said, "First learn the meaning of what you say and then speak." This isn't a call for perpetual quietism, it's a call for intentional, purposeful speech. Before speaking, the Stoic practitioner is encouraged to run a quick internal audit. Is what I am about to say true? Is it necessary? Is it kind? Does it serve a good purpose? Or is it merely serving my ego? This moment of pause between thought and utterance is where the art of Stoic conversation is born. It's the difference between reacting with a cutting remark and responding with a considered question. This philosophy is put to the test in some of our most challenging interactions, like giving difficult feedback. Imagine you are a manager and need to address an employee's consistent tardiness. The non-Stoic approach, fueled by frustration, might be a direct, accusatory statement. "You're always late." This is unacceptable and it's disrupting the entire team. This approach, while perhaps factually correct, immediately puts the other person on the defensive. It speaks to their character, not their action, and it comes from a place of judgment, not a desire for understanding. The Stoic approach would begin with listening. You might start the conversation by asking an open-ended question. "I've noticed the morning start times have been a challenge lately. Is everything okay?" This simple question, born of the Stoic virtue of justice, seeking to understand the other side, completely changes the dynamic. It opens a door instead of slamming one shut. You then state the observable fact without inflammatory judgment. When you arrive after the meeting has started, it requires others to stop and catch you up, which impacts the team's flow. Finally, you focus on the solution, which is within your shared control. What can we do to make sure you're here and ready at 9 a.m.? This method isn't about being soft, it's about being effective. It addresses the problem while preserving the relationship and the other person's dignity, because you are attacking the issue, not the human being. The same principles apply to heated family discussions, perhaps about politics or personal choices. The Stoic recognizes that you cannot control the other person's opinions or their emotional state. You can only control your own contributions to the exchange. The goal shifts from convincing them you are right to understanding why they believe what they believe and expressing your own view with clarity and calm. This means actively resisting the temptation to interrupt, to mock, or to escalate. It means listening to understand, not just to formulate your next rebuttal. When you feel the heat of anger rising, that is the signal to practice the discipline of assent, to question the impression that you are being personally attacked, and to choose a response that de-escalates rather than inflames. You might say, "I can see this is really important to you, and I appreciate you sharing your perspective. I see it differently, and here's why." This acknowledges their humanity without surrendering your own principles. Think back to your most recent difficult conversation. It might have been a minor disagreement with a partner about chores or a more charged talk with a colleague. Now replay it in your mind through a Stoic lens. Where did your words primarily serve your ego instead of the truth? Did you listen to understand, or merely to wait for your turn to talk? Did you choose brevity and kindness, or were your sentences designed to win? The power of this reflection isn't to dwell on regret, but to equip yourself for the next conversation. Each interaction is a new opportunity to choose your words with the care of an engineer, building bridges of understanding rather than walls of defense. Everything changes. Stoics saw this not as loss, but as nature's flow. This is one of the most fundamental and liberating principles in their entire philosophy, a direct confrontation with the reality that underpins all of existence. From the grandest galaxy slowly spinning apart to the cells in your body constantly dying and being replaced, the universe is in a state of perpetual, dynamic transformation. To stand against this current is to stand against reality itself, and that, the Stoics understood, is the very definition of suffering. Our pain so often comes not from the change itself, but from our clenched fist resistance to it, from our desperate and futile attempt to make the fluid solid and the temporary permanent. The wise person doesn't just tolerate change, they learn to lean into it, to see it as the essential process through which life renews, evolves, and reveals new possibilities. Marcus Aurelius, watching the vast Roman Empire from his unique vantage point, constantly returned to this theme to ground himself. He wrote in his Meditations, "The universe is change, our life is what our thoughts make it." And in another passage, "Loss is nothing else but change, and change is nature's delight." He wasn't being naive or dismissive of the very real feelings that accompany loss. He was performing a profound act of cognitive reframing, training his mind to perceive the same event through a different, wider lens. He would remind himself that to be angry or grief-stricken by change is like being angry at the seasons for turning or at a river for flowing. It is a misunderstanding of the fundamental nature of things. Our existence is not a static portrait to be preserved under glass. It is a flowing river, and our peace depends on our willingness to be the water, not a rock stubbornly resisting the current. We can see this principle play out in every stage and arena of human life. Consider the inevitable process of aging, a change many of us resist with tremendous energy and anxiety. We dye our hair, pursue treatments to smooth our skin, and often feel a pang of loss for the youth that has slipped away. We interpret the wrinkles and the gray not as natural markers of a life lived, but as insults or signs of decline. The Stoic shift is to see aging not as a decline, but as a transition into a different kind of being. The energy of youth may fade, but it can be replaced by the depth of wisdom, the richness of experience, and the clarity of perspective that only comes with time. To resist this change is to spend your later years in a bitter fight against an unconquerable foe. To embrace it is to discover the unique gifts and opportunities that exist only in this chapter of life. The modern world of work provides another powerful example. The idea of a job for life has largely vanished, replaced by a landscape of constant disruption, career pivots, and technological obsolescence. It's easy to feel anxiety and resentment about this. You might have spent years mastering a specific skill, only to find the market for it has evaporated. The non-Stoic reaction is to see this as a personal failure or an injustice. The Stoic response, rooted in the acceptance of change, is to see it as the nature of the economic ecosystem. The same principle of impermanence that applies to the natural world applies to the professional one. Instead of clinging to the ghost of a vanished career, the Stoic mindset encourages you to flow with the change. This becomes an opportunity to learn something new, to reinvent yourself, to discover strength you didn't know you had. The change isn't the problem. Your rigid attachment to what was is the source of the suffering. Even our most personal relationships are subject to this constant, gentle flux. The passionate intensity of a new romance inevitably evolves into the deeper, more stable bond of a long-term partnership. Friendships shift and change as people grow, move, and develop new interests. To demand that a relationship remain exactly as it was in its first perfect bloom is to kill it, to deny it the oxygen of growth. The Stoic embraces these evolutions, understanding that the strength of a bond is not measured by its sameness, but by its ability to adapt and deepen through different seasons. This doesn't mean you don't feel a bittersweet nostalgia for earlier times. It means you don't let that nostalgia prevent you from appreciating the unique beauty of the present phase. So I want to bring this from the philosophical to the deeply personal. Take a moment and turn your gaze inward. What is one change you are currently resisting in your own life? It might be a large, obvious one, a move to a new city, a shift in family structure, a health diagnosis. Or it might be something smaller but still potent, a change in a friend's behavior that you find irritating, a new policy at work that disrupts your routine, the simple fact that your children are growing more independent and need you less. Identify that point of resistance. Now gently ask yourself, what is the story I am telling myself about this change? Am I framing it as a loss, an injustice, or a threat? What if I chose to see it simply as change, a neutral and natural force? How might accepting its inevitability, even finding the potential hidden within it, reduce the stress and struggle I am currently feeling? You don't have to like the change. You simply have to stop arguing with reality. In that acceptance, you will find a profound and unexpected sense of relief, as if you have finally put down a heavy weight you didn't even realize you were carrying. The river is flowing. You can struggle against the current, or you can lift your feet and let it carry you forward to a new shore. We become like those we admire. Stoics consciously chose their heroes. This wasn't a passive process of casual inspiration. It was an active, disciplined practice of emotional and ethical engineering. The Stoics understood that virtue is not an abstract theory to be studied, but a concrete way of being to be lived, and one of the most effective ways to learn how to live is to find a master and study their craft. Just as a young painter would apprentice themselves to learn brushstrokes and a musician would study the compositions of the greats, a student of Stoicism would apprentice themselves to the lives of exemplary figures, using their choices and their character as a living textbook for their own development. Seneca, in his letters to his friend Lucilius, constantly pointed to the power of having a guiding figure. He wrote, "Choose a master whose life, conversation, and soul-expressing face have satisfied you. Picture him always to yourself as your protector or your pattern." He wasn't suggesting a slavish imitation of another person's entire life. He was advocating for the use of a role model as a constant reference point, a North Star for your own moral compass. When faced with a difficult decision, you wouldn't ask, "What would so and so do?" in a simplistic way. Instead, you would have internalized their core principles so thoroughly that you could reason through the situation with the same clarity and courage they might have demonstrated. Seneca himself looked to figures like Cato the Younger, the Roman senator who chose to take his own life rather than live under Julius Caesar's dictatorship, seeing in him the ultimate embodiment of unwavering integrity. He also revered Socrates not for his philosophical doctrines alone, but for the incredible courage and calm he displayed in the face of his unjust execution. By keeping these paragons of virtue in his mind's eye, Seneca had a ready-made standard against which to measure his own impulses and actions. This practice is incredibly practical because it makes the abstract concept of virtue tangible and relatable. It's one thing to tell yourself to be courageous. It's another entirely to bring to mind the image of Nelson Mandela, who endured 27 years in prison without bitterness and emerged to lead his country with reconciliation, not revenge. The principle of courage is brought to life in his story. It's one thing to aspire to be wise. It's another to study the life of someone like the physicist Richard Feynman, whose relentless curiosity and commitment to honest inquiry, even when it challenged popular opinion, provides a stunning modern template for the Stoic virtue of wisdom. Your chosen exemplar doesn't have to be a famous historical titan. It could be a grandparent who faced immense hardship with quiet dignity, a teacher who treated every student with infinite patience, or a colleague who always speaks the truth with kindness, even when it's difficult. The key is to select someone whose specific brand of strength resonates with you and whose life offers a clear, observable map of virtues in action. The true power of this exercise is revealed in moments of trial. When you are cut off in traffic and feel the hot surge of anger, the image of your chosen exemplar, someone known for their profound patience, can appear in your mind, creating that crucial moment of cognitive distance. When you are tempted to take an easy shortcut that compromises your integrity, the memory of your role model's unwavering honesty can serve as a powerful deterrent. You are essentially borrowing their strength until you have built enough of your own. Over time, through this process of constant comparison and emulation, their virtues begin to seep into your own character. You are not becoming them, you are using their example to become the best, most virtuous version of yourself. So I want to make this personal for you right now. Look beyond fame or superficial success. Who is one person you genuinely admire for their emotional resilience and their strength of character? It could be a public figure from history or a personal hero from your own life. Now go a layer deeper. What is it specifically about them that you find admirable? Is it their unshakable calm under pressure, their boundless empathy for others? Their ability to persevere through incredible failure, their commitment to justice? Naming that specific quality is the first step to understanding what you value most and what you yourself wish to cultivate. That person and the virtue they represent can become your personal Stoic exemplar, a guiding light on your own path to building an inner citadel that can withstand any storm. Our lives are filled with clutter, not just the physical kind that crowds our closets and counters, but a deeper, more insidious form of mental and emotional clutter that fills our calendars, our screens, and our minds with endless noise. The Stoics looked at this human tendency toward accumulation and complication and proposed a radical antidote: intentional simplicity. They believed that peace wasn't something to be found by adding more to our lives, but by courageously subtracting the non-essential. This isn't about minimalism as an aesthetic choice. It's about simplicity as a spiritual and psychological discipline, a deliberate clearing away of the distractions that prevent us from focusing on the one thing that truly matters, the cultivation of our character. Seneca, a man who enjoyed immense wealth, was its most powerful critic. He saw luxury not as a blessing but as a burden. In one of his letters, he writes, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor." His argument was that the pursuit of luxury creates a never-ending cycle of desire and anxiety. We acquire a new possession, experience a brief thrill, and then almost immediately our attention shifts to the next thing we feel we lack. This constant wanting is a form of self-imposed poverty, a state of perceived scarcity that exists entirely in the mind. He advocated for a simple life not because he hated beautiful things, but because he loved freedom more. He understood that every possession, every commitment, every subscription to a new service is not just a transaction. It's a tiny claim on your attention, a small thread tethering your peace of mind to the external world. The goal of simplicity, then, is to cut those threads and reclaim your mental sovereignty. This philosophy translates with stunning relevance to our modern world, perhaps even more so than in Seneca's time. Consider the concept of digital minimalism. Our devices are perhaps the greatest source of clutter ever invented. Every app notification is a potential distraction. Every social media feed is a curated marketplace for new desires, and the endless scroll of news and entertainment fractures our attention into 1,000 pieces. Practicing Stoic simplicity here means conducting a ruthless audit of your digital life. It means turning off non-essential notifications, deleting apps that primarily serve to kill time or foster envy, and designating periods of the day as screen-free. This isn't about rejecting technology. It's about harnessing it as a tool for your purposes rather than allowing yourself to be used as a tool for its purposes. The mental clarity that emerges from even a short digital detox is profound. It's the feeling of reclaiming your own thoughts from the constant buzz of the hive mind. The same principle applies to our physical spaces and our schedules. A cluttered home is a constant, low-level source of visual stress and cognitive load. Every item you own requires energy to clean, to maintain, to organize, to think about. The Stoic practice of decluttering is therefore not just housekeeping, it's a form of mental hygiene. By letting go of possessions that no longer serve a purpose or bring genuine joy, you are not just creating physical space, you are creating mental quiet. Similarly, our calendars are often monuments to our fear of missing out or our inability to say no. We fill them with social obligations, optional meetings, and tasks that feel urgent but are ultimately unimportant. Each commitment is a promise of your future time and attention. Stoic simplicity asks you to be brutally honest about which commitments align with your core values and which are merely clutter, undertaken out of habit or a desire to please. Learning to say a gracious but firm no to non-essential tasks is not a social failure. It is a declaration of independence. It is the act of prioritizing your inner peace over external expectations. So the challenge this week is a practical one. I want you to choose one single, unnecessary item to remove from your life. It could be a physical object, a piece of clothing you haven't worn in a year, a knick-knack on a shelf that you no longer even see. Take it out of your space and feel the slight but tangible lightness its absence creates. Or, perhaps more powerfully, it could be a commitment. Look at your calendar and identify one recurring meeting, social event, or obligation that drains your energy without adding real value to your life or the lives of others. This week, cancel it. Use that reclaimed time for nothing but silence, reflection, or a conversation with someone you love. This small act of removal is not a loss, it is an investment. You are trading a piece of the external world for a far more valuable currency, a moment of peace, a sliver of focus, a deeper connection to what is truly essential. In the economy of the soul, simplicity always pays the highest dividends. It's easy to envy others' success, to see someone's promotion, their new car, their perfect vacation photos, and feel that familiar, bitter pang of resentment mixed with a sense of lack. That feeling is a universal human experience, a raw, unedited reaction to perceiving that someone else has something we believe we deserve or desire. But where most people either simmer in that resentment or try to suppress it, the Stoics performed a brilliant act of emotional alchemy. They learned to take that toxic energy of envy and transmute it into something powerful and productive, the fuel for emulation. They didn't see another person's success as a threat to their own. They saw it as a living classroom, a demonstration of what is possible, and a roadmap for their own growth. The key to this transformation lies in a crucial distinction. The Stoics made the difference between the outcome and the character that produced it. Envy is fixated on the outcome, the job title, the salary, the accolades, the possessions. It covets the finished product without any interest in the process that created it. Emulation, on the other hand, is fascinated by the virtues and skills that led to the outcome. The discipline, the patience, the courage, the creativity, the resilience. Envy is a passive, draining state that says, "I want what they have." Emulation is an active, energizing state that asks, "What can I learn from how they got it?" One keeps you stuck in a mindset of lack and comparison. The other propels you forward on your own path of self-development. Epictetus, with his unerring focus on what is truly within our power, gave the perfect instruction for this mental shift. He advised, if you see any good in others, admire it and let it inspire you to imitate it. If you see any bad in others, turn to yourself and see if you are guilty of the same. Notice his precise language. He says to admire the good, not to covet their rewards. He directs your attention inward toward your own capacity for action, not outward toward their external possessions. This reframes another person's excellence from a mirror, showing your own inadequacy into a compass pointing toward your own potential. The person you envy ceases to be a rival and becomes an unwitting mentor, their life a public lesson in the very virtues you wish to cultivate in yourself. Let's make this concrete with a scenario almost everyone in the modern professional world has faced. A colleague, someone you consider a peer, gets a promotion you were also hoping for. The immediate, unchallenged reaction of envy is visceral and destructive. Your mind spins a story. They must have brown-nosed the boss. It's not fair. I'm more qualified. They just got lucky. This narrative, fueled by envy, leads to bitterness, disengagement, and a toxic work environment. It poisons your own well-being and does nothing to advance your career. Now apply the Stoic pivot. Instead of fixating on the outcome, their new title and office, you turn your analytical focus to the character and actions that led to it. Ask yourself with genuine curiosity, what admirable qualities does this person consistently demonstrate that I might learn from? Are they more meticulous in their preparation? Do they communicate their ideas with greater clarity and confidence? Are they more proactive in volunteering for challenging projects? Do they handle stress with more grace? This line of questioning does two things. First, it almost certainly reveals a valid, virtuous reason for their success that your envious mind had blinded you to. Second, and more importantly, it gives you a practical, actionable checklist for your own self-improvement. Instead of resenting their success, you can now use it as a diagnostic tool to identify and strengthen your own weaknesses. This practice extends far beyond the office. You might envy a friend's seemingly perfect relationship. Envy would have you feel bitter and inadequate. Emulation would have you observe, What specific behaviors make their relationship so strong? Are they more intentional about spending quality time together? Do they practice active listening? How do they handle disagreements? The goal isn't to copy their relationship, but to identify the underlying virtues, patience, communication, generosity, that you can then practice in your own. You might envy an artist's beautiful work. Envy says, "I wish I had their talent." Emulation says, "What can I learn from their technique, their dedication to daily practice, their willingness to experiment and fail?" The envy focuses on the innate, unchangeable idea of talent, trapping you in a fixed mindset. Emulation focuses on the learnable, improvable skills, empowering you with a growth mindset. So I want you to try this transformative exercise right now. Bring to mind one person you have recently felt a twinge of envy toward. It could be a public figure, a coworker, a friend, or even a family member. Now take out a piece of paper or open a note on your phone. At the top, write their name. Then draw a line down the center. On the left side, list the outcomes you envy: their job, their house, their social media following, their recognition. Acknowledge these and then consciously let them go. They are the external trappings, the possessions that Epictetus tells us are not ours to control or covet. Now, on the right side, list the admirable qualities they must possess to have achieved those things. Be specific and brutally honest. Is it their work ethic, their creativity, their ability to connect with people, their resilience in the face of failure, their optimism? This list on the right is your new curriculum. These are the virtues and skills entirely within your own power to develop, that your envy was trying to point you toward all along. Your envy, properly understood, wasn't an enemy to be defeated. It was a misguided teacher trying to show you the way to your own better self. Stoic wisdom isn't learned, it's lived through constant self-reflection. This is perhaps the most vital distinction between Stoicism and mere intellectual philosophy. It is not a set of ideas to be understood, but a set of practices to be performed, a continuous and never-ending project of refining your character. You don't graduate from Stoicism, you practice it each day, much like a musician practices their scales or an athlete drills their fundamentals. The moment you believe you have mastered it is the moment you have lost your way, because the goal is not perfection but perpetual progress. The world will never stop testing you, and your own mind will never stop generating flawed impressions. Therefore, your work of examination and correction is never finished. This is not a burden, but a liberation. It means every single day offers a fresh opportunity to strengthen your inner citadel, to become a little more aligned with virtue, a little more free from the tyranny of unchecked emotion and reaction. The ancient Stoics were explicit about the need for this daily maintenance. Seneca, in his moral letters to Lucilius, laid out a powerful and specific ritual for this very purpose. He described his own evening review, writing, "When the light has been removed and my wife has fallen silent, aware of this habit that's now become her own, I examine my entire day and go back over what I've done and said. I hide nothing from myself, I pass nothing by." This wasn't a casual stroll down memory lane, it was a rigorous, honest audit. He would confront his errors without mercy, but also without self-flagellation, seeking only to understand his missteps so he could avoid them tomorrow. He called this process keeping a watch over oneself, and he believed it was the key to moral progress. The purpose was never to dwell on guilt, but to learn from the day's events, to identify the gap between his philosophical ideals and his actual behavior, and to consciously narrow that gap the next time a similar challenge arose. Imagine applying this same forensic honesty to your own day. The practice is deceptively simple but profoundly transformative. You set aside just a few minutes of quiet, perhaps right before bed, and you ask yourself two fundamental questions. First, where did I act in alignment with virtue today? This is not about grand, heroic deeds. It might be the moment you paused before sending an angry email, choosing wisdom over impulse. It could be the small act of courage it took to voice a difficult but necessary opinion in a meeting. It might be the patience you showed a frustrated child or the justice you practiced by giving a colleague the benefit of the doubt. Acknowledging these victories, however small, is crucial. It reinforces the neural pathways of virtuous behavior, teaching your brain what to repeat. It shows you that progress is being made, even on the most ordinary of days. The second question is just as important, if not more so. Where did I stray from my principles? Again, think small. Did you complain about a minor inconvenience, adding your own mental suffering to a neutral event? Did you seek external validation by checking your phone for likes on a post? Did you avoid a necessary task out of laziness, failing in your duty to yourself? The key is to examine these moments not with self-condemnation, but with the detached curiosity of a scientist studying data. Your goal is to identify the trigger. What was the initial impression that you assented to without question? What story did you tell yourself that led to the less than virtuous reaction? Perhaps a colleague's brief email felt terse, and you immediately assented to the impression that they were angry with you, which put you on edge for the rest of the afternoon. By identifying that initial flawed judgment, you inoculate yourself against it tomorrow. You are not a bad person. You are a person who made an error in judgment, and now you have the chance to correct it. This nightly review is the engine of Stoic progress. It's the feedback loop that turns daily life into your personal training ground. Without it, philosophy remains theoretical, a beautiful idea that never touches the messy reality of your existence. With it, every interaction, every frustration, every minor success becomes a lesson. You stop seeing your day as a series of random events that happen to you and start seeing it as a curriculum designed for you, perfectly tailored to reveal your weaknesses and strengthen your resolve. The traffic jam is no longer an annoyance, it's a pop quiz on patience. The critical feedback isn't an attack, it's a test of your humility and your ability to distinguish useful truth from useless noise. The practice of self-examination transforms you from a passive student of Stoicism into an active participant in your own transformation. So the challenge is this, and it is deliberately small to ensure you can begin immediately. For the next 7 days, I want you to commit to a daily 1-minute self-check-in. You don't need a special journal or a perfect quiet room. In that 1 minute, simply ask yourself Seneca's 2 questions. Where did I do well? Where did I fall short? Don't get bogged down in lengthy analysis, just note the answers. The mere act of asking the questions, of directing your attention to the quality of your own character each day, will begin to work a subtle but powerful change. You will start to carry that question, am I acting with virtue right now, into your waking hours, and that awareness alone is enough to create a tiny, life-altering pause between impulse and action. This is how wisdom is lived, one examined day at a time. And so we arrive at the end of our journey, but really, this is just the beginning. We've traversed the vast and practical landscape of Stoic thought, from the foundational realization that our judgments shape our reality, to the daily disciplines that forge an unshakable inner citadel. If there's one thread that ties all these practices together, it's this profound shift from passivity to agency. We've moved from being passengers on a turbulent emotional roller coaster to becoming the engineers of our own inner world, equipped with a timeless toolkit for resilience, clarity, and profound peace. This isn't about suppressing what makes us human. It's about understanding our own operating system so well that we can choose our responses with the precision of a master craftsman, turning the raw materials of life, both its blessings and its challenges, into a masterpiece of character. The beauty of Stoicism is that it is not a philosophy to be merely understood, but a practice to be lived. It's in the daily act of journaling where you untangle the day's events with honesty. It's in the momentary pause before you react, creating that crucial space for choice. It's in the conscious decision to focus on what you can control, your efforts, your attitudes, your virtues, while gracefully releasing your grip on everything else. This is the heart of emotional engineering, a practical, actionable system built on cognitive reframing, resilience through deliberate practice, and the liberating focus on the controllables. It transforms abstract principles into a lived experience, a way of moving through the world with more intention and less friction. The Stoic slave turned teacher Epictetus, who knew a thing or two about external limitation and inner freedom, offered what might be the ultimate summary of this entire practice. He said, "No person is free who is not master of themselves. Let that sink in. Freedom isn't found in the absence of constraints, but in the absolute mastery of your own mind." It's the freedom that comes from knowing that no external event, no criticism, no failure, no loss, no unexpected obstacle can ever dictate your inner state unless you grant it permission. This is the ultimate promise of Stoicism, not a life without challenge, but a life where you are finally free to meet every challenge with unwavering strength and unshakable calm. You don't need to implement every single practice we've discussed starting tomorrow. That would be overwhelming, and the Stoics were nothing if not practical. The most powerful way to begin is to start small. Choose just one thing. Perhaps it's the evening journaling ritual, asking yourself what you did well and what you can learn from. Maybe it's adopting the view from above the next time you're stuck in traffic or feeling stressed by a minor problem, zooming out to gain instant perspective. It could be as simple as practicing the pause, taking one deep breath before you respond in a conversation. Embed that single practice into your life until it becomes second nature. That one small step is the first brick in building your own inner citadel. If this exploration of ancient wisdom for modern life has resonated with you and you're interested in more content like this, please consider subscribing to the channel. We dive deep into practical philosophies, mindfulness, and the science of living a better life. I'd also love to hear from you in the comments below. Which of the Stoic principles we discussed did you find most challenging, or perhaps most immediately useful? Was it the dichotomy of control, the concept of Amor Fati, or the practice of premeditatio malorum? Your insights not only help shape future content, but also create a community of learners supporting each other on this path. Thank you for your time and attention. Remember, the power to engineer your emotional world has been within you all along. You just needed the blueprint.